What's up, folks? This is Asteroid. So it's been a little while since there's actually been a great while since I've talked about the rapper Scarface on the channel. So it's been since 2015, and I wanted to kind of bring up something, seeing as that's a constant video of mine that gets traffic. So Balls in My Word is actually not a Scarface album, but it's a compilation, and this is unused and outtakes that Scarface basically did. And I felt like, as opposed to just reviewing a standard album, I kind of wanted to pick one that was off to the wayside and maybe doesn't have a video already on YouTube. That's kind of what I do. I mean, Scarface is easy enough to find that for, but I wanted to really get one that, just public opinion might not be as large upon. So that's kind of the thing. It works. I mean, this isn't the most terrific of projects, but it does have like some vintage Scarface, kind of under the impression of what you like him for. So it's not, I mean, as of 2003, it was up to date. I think he probably recorded it in the 2000s. I don't think it was from the 90s, but I would have to say, it almost sounds current. I don't know if like the production that they put him on was new or if those were actually songs that he made. But regardless of that, I mean, if they were songs that he made, then yeah, it's a current album. That's kind of why I took interest in it, was because I felt like maybe these were finished songs that Scarface just didn't need anymore, and then they took advantage. And by they, I'm talking about his label Rap A Lot, which is the one that he put out a lot of his 90s albums on. I think that was actually the label that he got started with. Ghetto Boys was on there, Devin the Dude was on there, people affiliated with these type people. I almost want to say like Bun B and Underground Kings were on there. I mean, that's not for certain, but a lot of folks from Texas were kind of on that label. And so Scarface had abandoned Rap A Lot and moved to Def Jam, and then he retired for a little while until he came back way out in 2007. But between 2002 and late 2007, he was retired, and the label obviously needed more material because he was one of their premier artists. So you got this, and for what it is, it's not a horrid project. It just does not have the actual touch of Scarface, which is almost disappointing. But from the angle it came from, I don't know if the people who constructed these songs just knew him well enough to do it. But that's kind of why I felt like these were just songs that were actually completed, but Scarface left behind, and that's the main perk to this project. So yeah, but there's not a single, obviously, because Scarface didn't put this out, and it really does feel like something straight from the 90s. It feels like an unofficial album almost to Scarface, and that's kind of the thing. So there's good stuff about it. I feel like On My Grind, if I had to guess, I would have said that probably would have been the single. It has Zero on there. This is a real smooth. I mean, the transaction of that song is so smooth and fluid. It works rather well. It doesn't have the best production, but it's pretty listenable. It's rather listenable. It works out. Zero's on here twice. I didn't care for Bitch Nigga that much, but that's kind of the problem with this project, is some of these, it's kind of understandable as to why Scarface might have left this behind, because a lot of the production on here is just bad, and that happens to be the thing. There are beats that shouldn't be allowed to be on a CD that's in stores, and I would probably say if they were trying to sell this, it'd probably be for like $4 or $5 or $6 or something. The price would probably not be too hefty. There's no single. There's not too many guests out of Scarface's like close family, and a lot of this is very hard to market just because it does not have that official touch. But luckily there are songs on here that work, and I'm going to list some of those, which will just lead basically right to the songs I recommend to you, which out of 12 songs there's 4. So you need to be messing with On My Grind, Stuck at a Standstill, Only Your Mother, and then Make Your Peace. And a couple songs that got close, maybe you might like, it would be Mary 2, which is basically the sequel to the Mary Jane song that he did. Nowhere near as beautiful as that song, but it still is kind of creepy in some ways. It really didn't add up to me. Spend the Night kind of tries to be another slinking song, but it kind of comes off. I mean, it's intended for women, but it somehow does not quite pull it off. I mean, I like the idea of it kind of being like a dark song, but then also for ladies as well. But it really needed work, and by that I mean a lot. But we'll talk about the good songs now. Those were two of the almost songs. So Only Your Mother probably has the best beat on here, plus a Devin the Dude hook, like he does on Fuck Faces and songs like that. Devin the Dude can normally do some good hooks, and it that's you know when I say vintage Scarface, this is one of the ones that does that. Stuck at a Standstill kind of has like mediocre production until like a certain bells start kicking in midway through the verse, and then it really starts getting a lot slicker. It kind of has a pulse from that point. And Scarface usually tells stories in his songs, so it really, that's the appreciable thing about Scarface, is the fact that he's not really trying to be, bare bones lyricism as much as he's trying to prove a point or get some sort of point across to you, tell some sort of story. So I like the idea behind that. He did that on the Made album and Emeritus and those type projects. So that's good. On My Grind, like I was saying, that's probably the most radio ready considering Scarface terms. But yeah, so those are just some of those. Make Your Peace is another one that sounds like 90s Scarface. Yeah, I mean, all of those are like the most haunting ones, the closest thing you're going to get to like Scarface if you want this album, but you want something that's on par with his album work. Those seemed, in my opinion, to be the ones that did that. So, but I mean, you can't go into this album expecting perfection. I mean, that's just the thing. I mean, the fact alone that Scarface did not himself make this is reason enough for that. But it seems like the people affiliated with him knew well enough that you'd probably get like a handful of gems and then just call it a day, call it even. So yeah, this album is just gonna get like a 3.5 out of 10. I could just give it a solid 3.5 just because it's enough to probably purchase, but I probably would not pay $10, $12 for this. I mean, anything more than like 5, 6, $7 is probably pushing it and that sort of thing. Especially considering that there's no single, the marketability of this project, the lack of promotion, and probably just the lack of word of mouth altogether means that you're really just fucking with this just for either completion's sake or being a hardcore fan or just you and your like very tight collective. So, but that's the beauty in it. I mean, when you find and when you mess with something that no one or hardly anyone messes with, that's kind of the beauty of being able to do those sorts of things. So there is that merit, but it just depends upon what you're dealing with, like, how popular, would I recommend a DJ mess with this sort of material? The answer is not really. I mean, it does not seem entirely outgoing, but it does kind of have like a creepy, this, almost smoke session kind of vibe, something like that. Just a real dark affair, something you'd probably play, in like the colder weather. It's not really a summer album. It just feels like, more of like like I was saying, a smoke session type project. So yeah, 3.5. The social score would probably get like a 1 just because, or I mean, I could give it a 0, but you get the idea. Social as far as how well your friends and collectives would accept it. There was no single, hardly any promotion. I don't think any music videos. That just kind of stands. It really is. I mean, you have to go out of your way to kind of find this. So that's the thing. But yeah, it is Scarface. So if it sounds like I'm complaining too much, I'm excited at least for the fact that it's Scarface. He has the ability to make good songs, and even when it's not under his authorization to do it, the fact that you can still get music good from him is a good thing. It's kind of the same thing with Tupac, except, Tupac, you really had no authorization because he's deceased. So this kind of, at least with Scarface, it's almost as if the direction behind it. They know him well enough to be able to get that done.